welcome to ClevrChat. This is a show where we talk to leaders in the IT and tech industry and understand their thoughts about some of the latest innovations and trends reshaping the world of technology. Joining us today for our very first episode is Ant Morse, founder and fractional head of AI at Adventa and the author of the thought-provoking book, The Future of Us, and helps organizations navigate the fast evolving landscape of emerging technologies such as AI, virtual reality, and extended reality. He's here today to talk about everything AI, things companies need to keep in mind before kickstarting an AI project, how to bring people along the journey, and more. So let's dive right in. Thanks, Ant, again, for taking the time out and joining us.
Thank you for
I'm sure
having me
this is
along.
going to
Great to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm sure this is going to be an interesting conversation. But first of all, do you want to start with a brief intro about you and your company? Anything I missed in the introduction? Do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, thanks, Harry. It was a good introduction, and Futurist is the purpose and premise of the organisation, and really that's about looking at these kind of future and current technologies, and it's that evolution of technology. What is it going to do? So my role is very precise. It looks at emerging technologies and the impacts that they will have both on organisations, but also society and the wider economy as well. So collectively, using a number of methodologies, it kind of gives you a good idea as to what's likely to happen.
Yeah, that sounds good. So, like I said, let's jump right in. And you are an AI and futuristic leader, and I think you're the right person for me to ask this question. So, AI is everywhere now, especially in the last 1 year or so. But I think there are still a lot of misconceptions floating around, like the idea that AI is going to take over the world or it's going to eliminate jobs. So, what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about AI, and how much truth is there to these concerns?
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge topic. It's a huge question, and I think there's going to be arguments on both sides as to its actual impact. And I think we can all, regardless of where we sit on the opinion, we can all agree this is going to bring significant and incredible change. It really is going to propel us into, as I refer to it, a history lesson in the future. It's going to be a time of such change that it is going to be noteworthy. But I think there's probably three realities as to what is going to happen. And that is that the harsh reality that it will take some jobs. So there will be AI, whether it's automation of mind or automation of labor, it will have disruptive circumstances on a number of industries and a number of roles. But it will be fairly isolated in its impact. It will be about probably mundane, repetitive, dangerous jobs that either it makes no sense for a human to do if there is automation, or it's too dangerous for a human to do. And again, that may then equally fall into that economic situation as well. Is it commercially viable for us to continue to do this with humans? So I think that in those circumstances, there'll be disruption. And for organizations, where possible, it's going to be about repurposing and retraining that skill. Now, it won't always be possible. There are going to be certain jobs, and they will hit their headlines, and there'll be disruptive headlines around that, and that's unavoidable. But I would hope that is a lesser impact. The other two areas, I think, will be more commonplace, and the first one of those will be cobotics. This is where AI will empower a role or take away some of the repetitive, the mundane, and allow people more space and time to think about being proactive. If you think about calling any service provider, anybody you've called over the last year, whether it be a bank or a utility, you've probably had a reasonable amount of service. You might have had a good, you might have had bad, but there are better ways to do it. There are better uses of time. It's suggested that 80% of traffic into a call center is known. We know exactly what they're calling for, and we can automate a lot of that. Also, societally, we don't always want to talk. So actually, to have somebody, to engage with a bot of some description, is preferred by most. And in those cases where we are speaking to a bot, we can get things done efficiently and quickly, but it allows the staff that have had that time freed up to work on more proactive stuff. And let's be honest, that might be around helping improve the customer experience. It might be that the bot gets stuck and we need to pass to a human. Having someone there quickly is going to be critical. Or it may be to upsell the service, to offer new suggestions, to enhance and delight customers' experience through new products and services. So I think that, for me, the cobotics, I'll refer to it as, is the absolute opportunity. And that's going to be disruptive, but only if organizations don't get it right. We've got a window of opportunity here to train people, to evolve, to plan and prepare, which we must take. The third element is where we kind of evolve the future of work completely. And this is where AI will bring new jobs, new roles, new duties, and completely revolutionize entire industries. It's not going to be a slight change. It really is going to be history lesson of the future stuff. So new roles will appear from AI. And I think it's going to be very interesting to see how those three journeys evolve. As I say, you're going to see the headlines over the harsh realities of it taking some jobs where humans are just not needed or sensible to continue. There'll be disruption where people are not trained and not evolving their skill in the cobotics, and there'll be equal question mark around some of these new roles. But the flip side to that is there'll be positivity as well, that we're replacing dangerous roles with robots where we should, and cobotics are empowering people. And for me as well, I think it'll help people balance work. Because if you think about the mundane tasks that you and I have done today, imagine a robot doing it. What would you do with that time? Would we go for a walk or go to the gym? We'd just relax. Maybe we'd do some learning, some development. These are all, I think, inevitable byproducts of progress. And again, if we look back over history, it's repeating itself. So yeah, so there's a yes and a no to it, a good and a bad. But I think overall, we can't fight the tide is the ultimate thing. We could debate and I have done with many people for hours and hours, but change is in the post, and we just need to adapt to it.
Yeah. So that brings me back to a question which I wanted to ask a lot later, but I think it makes sense to ask about that now. I'm sure people are thinking about it, that, AI is going to take my job. And when you try to implement an AI solution in the organization, you will probably be meeting a lot of change resistance in the organization. So what is your take on how do you bring people along this journey, like change management, training, security considerations? I'm sure there are quite a lot for organizations to consider.
There are, yes, and I think it's very important that organizations do this in a number of steps. And I think I mentioned earlier, the beauty is we now have a window of opportunity to manage that change. The first thing an organization must do is understand the art of the possible. So what might happen? Because this technology is, again, the news headlines are very misleading. We think it's truly intelligent. In my opinion, we're some way off true intelligence, but wow, they're incredibly powerful tool sets that we can use. So I think, first of all, it's kind of demystify the complex and get to the nuts and bolts of what it is, current capabilities and near future capabilities. Once we understand that, we can then start to map every process. And it may sound a little overkill, but I don't think it's an enormous exercise. And where I've done it successfully with organizations, it's actually easier than you'd think. But it's about mapping every process that's in the organization, to map the business process, which usually are documented anyway. Then it's about mapping individuals' roles. And this isn't to say, tell me what you do, we're going to see what we can get a robot to do. It's about that robotics piece, to say, where is the sensible transformation of your role, of your duty? And it tracks, I use a number of tool sets. One of them actually tracks the transition of what can be done by a human, what can be done by a robot. But then it's about bringing the people into it. Often they'll say, go in and bring an expert to tell us about this. That's slightly a different opinion. The experts sit within the organization. These are people that do it day in, day out. Hiring someone in to tell them what to do feels a little futile. Hiring someone to guide them what to do is sensible, but actually the answers often are in the organization. So get your people together and say, if we could remove, mundane, repetitive tasks from your role, what do they look like? But equally, what else could you do? How else could you improve the experience? Going back to that call center environment, 80% of traffic's predicted. It's not really bringing a lot of, job fulfillment if you're just answering the same questions time and time again. If robots could do that, what else could you do in that 20% of the time? How could you engage with customers? And I think it's reciprocal. The benefits are reciprocal on both sides. The customer has a better experience, the employee has a better experience. So it's about not doing this as a kind of, AI is gradually going to take your role. And I think there are lots of employees with that conception and fear. Asked around, people feel that way. So I think organizations have a responsibility to kind of pull the handbrake and say, right, let's just pause. What could it do? What might it do? And what's the benefits on both sides? And I think that candid overview is really helpful. The other important thing is to use that as well as an upskilling process. because again, AI is very new, it's very confusing. Actually, it's probably not as difficult to understand as people might think, or as the headlines would have us believe. So for organizations to say there is a significant impact in your role, which is suggested, how do we evolve it for you? How do we make it a successful process? How do we bring your skill along the journey? So that you've got to do all of those things together to help guide people through it. But we can't fight the tide. It's going to happen. So being prepared and having a plan is essential. And as I say, use people as the experts, because you'll be amazed at where the ideas come from. And it's usually the good ideas are in the business with the people who have the problem, and the answer to it usually is there.
Yeah. A key area where Cloud Clever customers, I'm sure, will be interested in is to know how AI will transform the communication and collaboration tools that we use daily. So what's your take on how is it going to improve customer experience, for example, especially in spaces like contact centers, because that's an area we keep hearing that, AI is going to take over your entire contact center, for example.
Absolutely. And I might be a little out there in my opinion on this, but I assure your listeners that this is quite well thought through, and there's lots of data to back it up, and is likely to happen. But what we're going to see in the not too distant future is we're going to see the evolution of AI assistants into AI personal assistants. So what will happen here is you will have an AI personal assistant that acts on your behalf. So you will ask it to do everything from replying to a simple email, booking you a train, or contacting your bank, your utility provider, your mobile phone provider, whoever it is. And organizations will need to be ready for AI to AI communication. Now, what will happen in those environments likely is that you will be present, but the AI will act on your behalf. So imagine if you asked your AI bot to pay a bill at your bank or do some things with your bank, and it needed a bit of information for security. It would look at my diary now, know that I'm on this call, and wouldn't interrupt. If it knew that I was just doing some research, I was available, it may just tap in my ear and say, sorry to bother you, the bank need to know this, this, and this. Could you just provide that information? But whether it pauses or does it live, the beauty of it will be is that you don't have to say, I'll leave that until tomorrow. I'll call the bank tomorrow. You'll just literally be able to do it there and then. So evolution of artificial assistance into personal assistance is inevitable. Again, some listeners may be kind of thinking that's a bit out there, but the reason, or one of the reasons this will become inevitably the case, is that the AI organizations have to monetize their product. They're spending billions of pounds investing into generative AI. And one of the key things in the Futurist is we follow the money. And if you follow the money, there is no money. So they're going to have to create some money. So none of these solutions are by accident. The two areas they'll monetize this is, one is in personal consumer services. So my AI assistant doing things for me, as I say, replying to an email or speaking to the bank. I will pay for that service, and it'll give me heaps of time back. The other way is that it will become an expert in the industry. So, for example, if you joined the bank and you went to work there, you could be day one, fresh out of school, no real experience of banking, but a great education, and you'd have a constant expert in your ear or on your screen wherever you needed it. So, and we'll pay for that because it will make staff, it'll upskill staff super quick, and it'll be expert in the service. So they'll monetize those two areas, and the innovation which will follow, as I say, will move very, very quickly from replying to a simple email to doing more things for you. And that's, as I said, is probably going to have a huge and significant impact on service providers. The most interesting thing is if you follow the kind of what ifs and whys, this process that I use called collision sequencing, and the reality is that once you have a service like that, the service will be so good, there'll be very little reason to ever leave. Because if you think about the stats and data as to why people leave their bank or their service provider, it's two reasons. One is either service or price. Often, service or price are the two usual ones. And a bad experience really does get you moving quickly. And if AI is doing all of this on your behalf, and if it is doing a good job, why would you leave? So it's going to make the competitive landscape really, really, it's going to change entire industries, because, banking's one example, but think of the service provisions that we have and pay for every month. It's going to be really, really disruptive. And I think there'll be a quiet race for organizations to get there first. Now, it won't be as final as it sounds. I'm going to kind of sanity check myself here. And the reason being is people will use it first. So we'll see early adopters, people who are curious as to whether it will work. And that's only a small percentage of society. That they will be the ones that are in effect the pilots. They'll be the proof of concept. People like me saying, let's give it a go. Why not? I might be less precious about data or willing to give a bit more away. But other parts of society will say, absolutely not. This sounds like witchcraft. I'm not going to use it. My concern or call out to counter my own sanity check there is the pace of progress is such that will we have that time of evolution where people go, it seems to work for them, I'll join. If that happens very quick, a lot of organizations won't be able to flip. So going back to that preparation, that's where that preparation is absolutely vital now. But yeah, that for me is going to be big. I think in between then and now, it'll be much more natural language processing. They'll speak to a bot rather than type to a bot. The bots will become more intelligent, and bots also will be more accurate. So very cheap, but cost effective. So I have cheap's the right word, but very cost or return on investment viable solutions will be put into organizations to join up legacy systems. So we're working with an organization at the moment where they've got 4 systems, a ticket system, a knowledge base, and a few legacy CRM systems that don't talk to each other. And they're not in great shape, some of them better than others. And they're applying, or we're working with them to apply a generative AI bot that sits on top and talks to all 4 systems, but only gives one answer back to the operative that's using the service. The best thing about this is rather than go and replace all 4 systems or upgrade those systems, you can actually leave them where they are because the AI bot is so intelligent that it actually corrects the systems where it finds any errors. So it's like a audit and validation and tidy up process for old out-of-date systems that perhaps the data is a bit questionable or a bit interesting. Now, one thing again, conscious of your audience today, different levels of knowledge on this. They will do it both in a safe way, then it will be done via training. So for a period of time, going back to that evolution of the people, organizations will have more and more AI trainers. So we're working with another field-based operative company that uses a similar type of thing. And where the system gives them an answer, they act as a validation. So you kind of think, well, why bother automating it? But it's an essential part of the process to say, does it work? So they're going to run this for about 6 months where whatever the AI tells them, they're going to challenge on purpose just to check that it's giving them the right information. And over that 6-month period, it will help retrain the model as well. So yeah, it's incredible evolution happening now as well.
Yeah, but I mean, if the ultimate result is happy customers, I think everyone will be up for just using more and more AI in contact center. But you don't see them replacing an entire call center, right? That's not the future you are envisioning.
No, far from in actual fact. And I work with an organization, Cavell, who kind of, industry leading research and consultancy in telco. They're actually seeing the number of seats in call centers grow. So, and that's now, and I think that will only continue because again, if you think about repurposing the staff to do better and more supportive jobs, and the threat of AI being so efficient that customers never leave, the opportunity really is to ensure that they have the right conversations with customers now and to have those breakouts. I've a couple of examples personally where I've got frustrated with chat, gone and looked for a telephone number and ended up just being unhappy, or generally a bit miffed. And you think, well, there's people out there, that they're probably dealing with these mundane, repetitive tasks. And instead of getting a very grumpy Aunt Morse on the phone, they could intervene. Or the idea is that as I'm going through that, I'm happy to be self-served. I want to speak to a bot and not speak to a human. This point's where I need that jump off, and to be greeted by somebody very quickly will be just amazing. You'd be like, this is, yes, yes, you can help. I don't get any sense from your bot. What I need to do is this, and this, and to have a human interact with you is going to be amazing. Also, as well, the AI systems are only as good as the data that's in them. And we're going to see the tidy up the data and all that kind of stuff. But what it will mean is that we're better informed. So if you think about basically somebody's bank status, if you like, how much money they've got in the bank, whether they've got an overdraft, whether they've got loans, whether they've got credit cards, then it might be that we will utilize humans to actually help pull that data using AI to say, actually, this person's not very efficient in the banking. What would be better with this? So for that operative then to say, while we're on, fix your problem, but while we're on, it might be something we can do to help, your finances because you've got these three products. Actually, they're the better fit here. And again, that proactive service, knowing that someone's looking out for you is going to be the decider because AI is going to do the boring stuff, and that's going to be the work of the future will have more purpose and more benefit and more value. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it will definitely be relevant,
Yeah,
in
a
my
good
opinion.
point that you mentioned is the data part of it. What do you often see with organizations you work with? Are they aware of how good quality data they have, or do they just jump onto the bandwagon of AI because that's the trend now?
Yeah, I mean, it does differ. So I don't want to generalize, but I'll say a large percentage don't really use the data that they have, or they certainly don't use it to good effect. Some, as I said, forgive me, some are very, very efficient with the data and use it to blue capacity. But generally speaking, no, the data is
Mm.
there. Sometimes it's questionable where it is as well. So we go again to that legacy system, it's spread across 4 or 5 different systems. And most of the time, nobody's actually doing anything with it. I think often businesses are efficient, operationally efficient, but this is a new area. Data is not a new commodity. It's not a new tool in a business's sales kit, but I don't think it's being used as efficiently as it could in the majority of situations. And what AI will do is it'll just really bring that data to life. So
Mm.
there's two parts of the process that organizations need to do. One is to use AI to tidy up the data, whether that's a generative AI system that's going to kind of categorize and check and validate the data, remove the duplications, and whatever it needs to do. But the next bit then is to say, well, how can we use this better to apply? And this is not sophisticated artificial intelligence, very basic machine learning and deep learning techniques. But to actually say, tell me, maybe I'm the example with that bank that I just mentioned, this person, without me calling in, this person's account looks like this, we have a better fit. We've got a better product, or there's a better way we could service this customer. Or maybe the customer needs help. Again, to be that proactive service is what AI is going to allow us to do, whether it's dealing with the mundane or, spotting those opportunities is where it needs to be focused on. But I think while data isn't new, utilizing it properly is
So three
really
things
missing.
that if you want to, if you are meeting Cloud Clever, for example, and we want to build an AI system, three things that we should do when it comes to data.
Well,
What
I
do you
think the
think?
first thing,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the first thing is to understand where the data is stored at the moment, first and foremost, and then to apply kind of a policy to that data. What do you need to keep? It's kind of going back to that GDPR
Yeah.
requirement, really. Is the data you're using reasonable and fair? What are you using it for? What are you storing it for? So I think it's kind of a good bit of initial housekeeping. The second
Mm.
thing then is to look and optimize that data. Remove the duplications, tidy it up, and everything else. And then the third step is to look at how you can better use that data, whether it's to improve service, whether it's to amend processes. Because a lot of the time, that data will tell you that there's a better way to do things, or there's a potential problem in the existing system. But it's going back to that first bit to say, well, what are we using the data for? Not just as a housekeeping with regulation in mind, actually, what's the benefit of using this data? Almost see it as a duty of care. That if you're
Mm.
providing services to your customers, what else could you do for them? How else could you better inform them? Again, banking's a great example that there will be people with not banks not in great shape in terms of their account where there's a better product. It really is probably a responsible act for the bank to say there's a better service. And forgive me, I'm not casting stones that the bank don't do this. We all receive the letters through the door saying there's better things. I think it can be taken up 1,000 feet and say let's really take this as a responsible action. So in summary, organise, tidy up, validate the data, make sure you understand what you're using it for. The second bit is then to organize it.
Mm.
Use AI, collect systems together, and make sure it's in a secure environment with common sense and GDPR in place. And then the third bit is, how can you use that to really improve service, improve the offerings to the customer as well. That's the bit for me that I think is missing. I think the other two bits are done in pockets, and we all observe the right regulations around GDPR. But when do we surprise and delight customers with, what they don't know?
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I've seen that's one area where people generally struggle. They don't know where
Yeah,
the data is, how do they organize it, how do they clean it up, whether it's the right
yeah,
thing. And yeah, those kind of things is usually something that we hear quite often. So till now, we've been speaking about creating AI models, right? And especially in the context of small and medium-sized organizations, do you think they have a business case for creating an AI model, or for them, is it more of using, because I'm sure most of the tools they use today, they have an AI interface embedded to it, like Copilot, for example, with all your um, Microsoft apps you use daily, or even if you go to the contact center platforms, like what Zoom, your Ring Central, all of them have got an AI
yeah.
assistant built into it. So what is the use case for small and medium-sized organizations? Is it just leveraging these apps that are built into platforms
Mhm.
that you use daily, or coming up with a model from scratch, for example? Any use case that you can share from
Yeah,
your experience?
I think it's a really good question, and one that's been around quite heavily in the last 6 months. What are people using AI for, and how are they using AI? And I think there's two very separate camps to it. So one is AI powered services. So the
Mm.
services that you just mentioned, that Zoom or Cloud Clever, all have an element of AI assistance or co-pilot type service within them. That for me is not really using AI. I think that's just an evolution of a product set that you've got already. Now, some may take that into their boards or put it into their marketing material, that they're an AI focused
Yeah.
organization. And that's not, I think that's borrowing somebody else's AI
Yeah.
powered solution. But not to knock it, these solutions are clever and they're great, and if they can make us more efficient as organizations, absolutely, you bet. But if you're not going to drive through innovation or bring any differentiation to it whatsoever. What is more local and small scale projects, and I refer to them being local and small scale projects for a good reason, which I'll come on to. But this is where we're using AI to solve existing business problems. So if you think back to that point I mentioned about mapping all of the processes, whether you're a multinational global organization or whether you're a small business, doesn't matter. The process can be applied logically in either organization. When you look at those, and particularly when you bring your people together and say, right, how could we be more efficient? What AI could do this, what can you do for your role or for this particular process? You quickly find, imagine if we could, that's the opportunity, is to roll out small custom-built AI solutions. You'll hear the term agents being bandied around, or large action models, or terribly complex industry in terms of jargon, but I think agents is the term that most people have locked on. So to deploy an AI agent that an organization can build with a provider, I'm sure, who can support them, and an agent that can do something, can improve a process. The example I gave there of, 4 legacy systems, previously someone would have to interrogate 4 systems, leaving the customer on hold. But they had to check all 4 just in case there was new information in one or the other. Now that's actually a voice. So they don't even have to type in. They could literally put you on hold and ask the bot, the agent, what do I need to know about this customer, or anything like that. So, and I think the idea with these is to run them as run the exercise to work out where the opportunities are, and then to launch very small scale proof of concepts to test it with human intervention to train it, and very quickly get to the point where you can very agilely say, this has got legs, it's doing a wonderful job, each call time is reduced by this, or we're able to upsell by that, and now look at scaling that. So ideate first, then look at the art of possible, build a proof of concept. At the same time, be kicking the tires of the return on investment. What's the business case behind it? Because it's, I think, commonly stated by Harvard Business study that 80% of AI projects are going to fail. And that's not
Yeah.
because they're not going to work. I'm sure they do work. It's they're going to fail because they'll get to the CFO and they're going to kind of have a look and go, oh, what we're doing and why we're doing this. And the excitement and kind of energy of we must be an AI powered business is often shadowing the actual need for a solution. And, the return on some of the investments could be, while 80% will fail, due diligence, proper process will solve, you'll be at the 20. You won't get that far with the 80. You'll lose those and say, let them fail. They went no further than an idea on a Post-it note on a workshop wall. These are the 20% that have got promise and will deliver a return on investment. That's the opportunity. Also, as well, it's very important that we do separate the projects that are going to pass and fail, because while they are relatively, very cost effective to run and stand up these trials in comparison, there's a limit. You might map 50 processes in your organization and identify, 200 opportunities. You've got to get to the right one. So there's going to be a rank and stack and a prioritization. You call it an innovation laydown, where you can kind of quickly move the pieces around and say, these are the priorities, these are not so, these are what we'd do if we had time and money in abundance. But for now, we'll focus over here. Because you're not going to keep getting the majority of boards that actually they don't have a budget for some of this. The budget was written before this was a thing. So, how do you manage and innovate on a sensible budget? It's important that we find funds to do it. We can't ignore it, but doing it sensibly and very considered is a must. Absolutely.
So understand why you're doing it. See if you have a business case for doing it. See if you have a budget and resources to do it. Essentially, that's the message. And any interesting examples that you've seen with people you work with who, despite the lack of budget or limited budget, let me put it that way, managed to create something interesting?
Yeah, I work with an incredible organization called Serenity, and they've completely re-engineered using Gen AI a bot for a company. So they were putting in questions on their chat side, and the answers were speaking to a few different systems in the background and not really giving any joined up answers at all. And I think customer sentiment was, this doesn't work. It's not a great service. I'm not getting the answers out that I need. And you can see that. You can hear that in the feedback if they care to type it, but you can also see that they're not using the system very long. So they're not having success. What Serenity did is they basically introduced a Gen AI system that would not only check and validate a number of different sources, but then use Gen AI to present it back in a more meaningful and beneficial way to the user, but also rectify any duff information along the way. So it was a great example. I think that's one of the best. And the other company that were using those 4 legacy systems, I think Plan A was to consolidate those into one. The cost was immense, and the risk and the time scale was just mind blowing. Whereas this is a bot that does it all. It's quite incredible. This is innovation.
So there are really use cases for even small organizations and not really those huge organizations with big budget. Yeah.
That's right. And I think that's the most important thing. It's not for it's not just the reserves of a large organization. In actual fact, it's probably playing more to the advantage of small businesses currently, because they can be agile. They can, sign these things off very quickly and get cracking. Most enterprise organizations take around, 350 days to launch a product, because there's so much process and there's so much tape in the way, whereas small businesses, you'll probably find you can get all the people you need in a room there and then to make a decision. So again, make sure it's the right decision. Play the roles of innovative and out of the possible, but also the gatekeeper, the common sense, sensibility, and the financial return. There's so much we could do. We can't do it all, so we've got to make sure we back the right horses. Whether we're enterprise or SMB. But massive opportunity for SMB. It's going to change a lot, really.
Quite a lot of use cases. Exciting times. So, what are you most optimistic about when it comes to the future of AI?
Well, this was part of the reason that I became a futurist way back, is that it's going to allow the unconnected to be connected. Now, obviously, we have to be, in possession of the device, but we can come back to that as a separate point. But if you have a device, regardless of your situation, having access to Gen AI solutions, and it will empower you in so many ways. it's a tutor in your pocket. It's going to bring everyone up to the same level of education. Will be, a guide, an advisor. It's going to do all this stuff. Also, as well, if we look at accessibility, it's going to connect the unconnected in terms of disability, sight loss, neurodiversity. It will break down a huge amount of barriers. But going back to that point, first and foremost, we need everybody to be connected, and I know that's not the case across the world right now. But I think if we're connected, the possibilities for accessibility and inclusion are absolutely fantastic. It will still need regulation, and that is happening in the background, and it will evolve. But I think, what the services this can bring to accessibility is just amazing. And
Are you not worried about the security aspects, all these AI creating deep fakes and
yes,
whatnot?
yeah, the deepfakes are quite incredible. I actually had a synthetic avatar built, but the organisation I worked for at the time wouldn't release it because they said, "Well, what if you went on the news and said something?" So I think there is concern about that. Interestingly, I think the answer to a lot of that will be AI itself. So the
Yeah.
personal assistant I mentioned, part of their role and part of the service, again, monetization of this, part of the service we'll buy will be protection against those types of things. So if my AI spots somebody pretending to be me, it will, know enough about me to say that's not him, take it down, or it will challenge it. So it's AI to fight AI will be the answer. And again, when you ask me that question of what concerns me, it's our ability to adapt in that short amount of time. So, there will be a bit of disruption in between then and now. But again, if you think of what people will pay for, they'll pay for time back. So AI to do bits of your job, but also safety and security, as we do now with, antivirus and the likes. And then the other areas, health will pay for health. So there will be the three areas that all of these AI companies really come after and really try and target and focus for. But they'll help us. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It's a healthy model.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my final question, what's one piece of advice for people looking to use AI in their organization, but doubtful where to start? What is one piece of advice you have to tell them? Is it, again, I don't know if you touched on it already, about the point of, understanding why I need it. Is that still a core
I think
important
you've
message?
hit the nail on the head. Yeah. What is it going to do?
Yeah.
What might this do? So it's, will it improve the business? Will it improve staff morale? Will it improve, the future of work? Ask that question and be really, really challenging, because, it is going to be, we're going to see lots of focus on this, but it's not all going to be, amazing, and it's not all going to, see, the problem is you can't do everything. So, it will offer promise and opportunity across so many different areas. Which is the one you're going to pick? So mapping the process, mapping the roles, I think is the one, because you'll quickly, the filter basically just kind of shoots out and says, these are the three things you must do, and here's why, or these are the three things you must watch, and here's why. So it's having that, but it feels quite new. It's not disaster recovery, it's not business process re-engineering. It's kind of like it's a new thing. It's innovation mapping, I think, is probably the best thing. But innovation in lots of organisations is a nice to do. Now it's a need to do. You must do it. And it doesn't, as it doesn't have to be hugely complex. It's about just getting the right methodology, right processes, and deploying it, and then letting the people run it. Give it responsibility to each of the areas. I often go in and help businesses set it up and then lead them to it. It's not complex process, but it's new. Doesn't exist in all organizations.
Yeah. Thanks, Ant. This was a hugely informative discussion, and I'm sure I learned a lot, and I'm sure others did as well. Everyone who's listening, you can follow Ant on LinkedIn. I'll leave your social media handle link in the description box if anyone wants to check it out. And yeah, thanks a lot, Ant, for taking the time out and chatting to me.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me on. Great to talk to you.